You know that feeling when you sense someone's gunning for you, but you can't prove it yet?
Yeah.
That's how it started. I'm Ava Mitchell, 26. I'm the executive assistant at Langston and Rowe, a private equity firm dressed up in glass walls and fake smiles. For 3 years, I've been the right hand to Roger Langston, founding partner, dealmaker, legend in his own mind. He didn't build this empire alone. Everyone knows that. But nobody ever says it out loud. Not if they want to keep their job. And I did want to keep mine until I didn't. It all changed the day he walked in. Elliot Langston. Roger's son, 28, Ivy League, high-gloss resume with just enough padding to hide the lack of substance. He had the charm of a snake oil salesman and the ego of someone who's never been told no, not once, not by daddy, not by anyone. He strutted into the office on a Monday like he owned it, because technically he was being groomed to. We're bringing Elliot on as VP of Development, Roger told me that morning, sipping his espresso like it tasted better than people's jobs. I nodded, smiled. Of course. Should I set up his accounts? Roger didn't look up. Already done? Just show him the ropes, make him comfortable. Comfortable. Sure, because nothing says comfort like handing the wolf the keys to the henhouse. Still, I did what I was told. That's what I was good at. I ran meetings, organized files, took calls, smiled on command, and I made Elliot look good better than he deserved. But he didn't thank me. Not once. Instead, he flirted, then criticized, then took credit. He'd say things like, "Let's circle back," or "I'll have my team get on it," as if he had a team. As if the person doing the work, me, didn't exist. I kept my head down. I kept receipts. I told myself, stay smart, Ava. Just keep watching. Then came the launch. Langston and Rowe was prepping a massive acquisition, a $90 million buyout of a tech company in Austin. I handled all the paperwork. I arranged the travel, formatted the reports, sat in on calls, took notes on every whisper and number that came through. I knew this deal better than Elliot did. Better than Roger. Even. So when Elliot asked me to email him the final valuation packet, I didn't think twice. I did it. The next morning, I got called into HR. No warning, no explanation. Just a cold gray room and a laminated policy packet. Ava, the director began, there's been a serious breach of confidentiality. A document was leaked to an external party. It was traced back to your email login. My blood ran cold. What document? The acquisition packet, the one you sent to Mr. Langston. I stared. He asked for it. She shrugged. There's no written record of that? Of course there wasn't. He used a phone call. Classic Elliot. I tried to defend myself. I begged them to check the logs. But it didn't matter. Roger signed the termination himself. No apology. No eye contact. Just a sealed envelope and a security escort to the elevator. I remember holding that envelope in the parking garage, my breath catching in my chest, like it didn't know whether to scream or sob. My fingers trembled. My heart burned. I didn't cry. Not then. But I didn't let go either. Because in that moment, something inside me changed. I wasn't going to walk away quietly. No. I was going to make sure the Langstons remembered the assistant they tried to erase. People always underestimate the assistant. They think we just make coffee, book flights, answer phones. But we're the ones who hear everything, see everything. We know whose name is really on the deal memo, who forgot to mute during a Zoom call, and who whispers to whom after hours when the office is quiet. And when they forget that, when they treat us like furniture, that's when we're most dangerous. The night I got fired, I didn't go home. I went to the cafe across the street from Langston and Rowe, the one with the big windows where I used to eat lunch and watch the city move. I sat in the corner with my laptop, ordered a black coffee, and opened the backup drive I kept hidden. 3 years of folders, meeting notes, call transcripts, expense reports, Slack exports, even the audio files from Elliot's practice pitch. The one where he rehearsed using my words from my research for my client presentation. And there, Buried in a string of forwarded emails was the beginning of my revenge. Elliot had forwarded that valuation packet, not just to himself, but to someone named Derek Winslow. I clicked the name. Derek Winslow was the CEO of a rival investment firm, a firm that had just coincidentally outbid Langston and Rowe on the Austin acquisition 2 days before I was fired. That was it. Proof that Elliot leaked confidential data, my data, to a competitor. And somehow, I got blamed. I sat there staring at the screen, my coffee long gone cold, my hands clenched. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was lit up with purpose. I knew what I had to do, but I also knew I had to be smart, precise, patient. I wasn't going to scream into the void. I was going to bury Elliot with his own lies. First step: lawyer up. I called the only person who'd ever scared Roger Langston. Her name was Dana Price, a former SEC auditor turned private consultant. I met her 2 years ago when she came to investigate Langston and Rowe's compliance practices. Roger hated her, which meant I liked her instantly. "Miss Mitchell," she said coolly when I explained everything. "How attached are you to going quietly?" "Not even slightly," I replied. Dana reviewed the files. All of them. She asked sharp questions. She asked if I had other proof. I nodded. "There's more, but I want to hit them where it hurts." "Good," she said, "because whistleblower protections don't cover stupidity. They cover corruption." We filed an anonymous tip with the SEC the next morning, then another to the state attorney general's office. Then I uploaded my own evidence to a private encrypted cloud. I created a backup of the backup, labeled every folder with date stamps, call logs, financial. I knew how Langston and Rowe operated, how they manipulated valuations to justify their buyouts, how they papered over losses. Elliot didn't just make a mistake. He committed a crime, and Roger covered it up. But I wasn't finished yet. Revenge is sweeter when it's public, so I pitched an expose to a journalist I once helped fact-check during a PR crisis. Her name was Jade Nguyen, a whip-smart, no-nonsense reporter who hated corporate fraud more than anyone I'd ever met. I sent her a clean, redacted sample of what I had. She called me 5 minutes later. "This is huge." "It's real," I told her. "I can prove everything." She asked if I'd go on the record. "Not yet," I said, "but when the time is right, I will." We planned everything. She would build the story brick by brick, verify the leaks independently, use quotes from Elliot's own emails. It would take a few weeks, but I had time, because while she wrote the truth, I was rewriting my life. I wasn't going to be an assistant again. I started a consulting brand, Ava Sharp Strategies. I posted a soft launch online, helping women navigate high-stakes business environments with clarity, confidence, and strategy. Within days, my inbox was full. Other assistants, junior staff, women who'd been chewed up by companies like Langston and Rowe and left to rot. I coached them, I helped them, and I got paid for it. Funny how valuable your experience becomes when people finally realize you weren't just taking notes. You were absorbing everything. By the 3rd week, I had 5 clients. By the 4th, Jade's story was ready. It dropped on a Monday morning, exactly 1 month after the day Elliot fired me. The headline read, "Insider Leak at Langston and Rowe, How One VP Betrayed a $90 million Deal and Blamed the Assistant." I woke up to 68 missed calls, 3 of them from Roger, 12 from Elliot. The rest, media outlets, law firms, whistleblower advocacy groups. My LinkedIn exploded. My consulting page crashed from traffic. And best of all, Langston and Rowe's stock plummeted 23% in 2 hours. Elliot tried to deny everything. Then the emails surfaced, then the recordings, then the SEC announced a formal investigation into company-wide compliance violations. Roger fired Elliot publicly that afternoon. But it was too late. Their name was scorched. And mine? Mine was finally being spoken in the room. Not as a helper, as a storm. They always expect the assistant to disappear, to retreat, to vanish in shame. But I didn't vanish. I became visible. And the louder I got, the quieter Elliot and Roger became. After Jade's article went viral, the calls didn't stop for days. Reporters, podcasters, panel invites. Everyone wanted the inside story from the assistant who took down one of the top investment firms in the city. But I didn't give them the whole thing, not yet, because I had more. Jade's article was only the tip of the iceberg, the real gold mine, the pattern. Langston and Rowe hadn't just fumbled one deal. They'd rigged a dozen. Elliot was the puppet. But he'd been orchestrating the strings since the beginning. I knew where the bodies were buried, because I'd helped write the maps. And while the media storm swirled, I launched my next move. Ava Sharp Strategies went from whispers to headline. I hired a web designer, a brand strategist, a lawyer, and a CPA. I wasn't just freelancing anymore. I was building a company, one that specialized in corporate coaching, brand crisis mitigation, and whistleblower consulting. In other words, I turned my trauma into a toolkit. Every time someone tried to shame me for being just an assistant, I sharpened the blade. Because the truth is, they relied on me. Every deal, every cover-up, every meeting Elliot took credit for, I was in the room. And now, so was the world. I held nothing back. 1 week after the expose, I gave my first public interview. Face visible, name clear, voice steady. The interviewer leaned in across the table, her tone gentle but curious. "Weren't you afraid?" I smile into the camera. Afraid? Of course. But being silent was worse. And then I said it. Corporate arrogance depends on invisibility. They think if they crush the lowest rung, no one will notice. But they forgot. We're the ones who hold the ladder. The clip goes viral. Millions of views. People start tagging me in their own stories. Abuse, silence, stolen credit, unpaid overtime. It's not just my story anymore. It's a movement. And then, right in the middle of my momentum, Roger tries to call me again. He leaves a voicemail this time. "Ava," he says, voice low and serious. "We need to talk. There's more going on than you understand." I don't call back. Because I do understand. I understand that he's panicking. Because Elliot is gone. The board is splintered. And the SEC is breathing down his neck. A week later, I get a subpoena to testify. I sit in a government building under bright fluorescent lights, while attorneys flip through binders full of documents I provided. And I speak. Calm, measured, clear. I name names. I provide timelines. I show how Elliot falsified valuation reports, how Roger approved his son's behavior, and how I was scapegoated for the whole thing. And when I finish, the lead investigator leans back and nods. "You've done this city a favor," he says. But I'm not done yet, because revenge isn't complete when the villain falls. It's complete when you rise. I walk out of that hearing room not just relieved, but empowered. Because that same afternoon, I signed the lease for my first office. Downtown. Glass windows. Exposed brick. Quiet confidence in every corner. I move in the next morning with a laptop, a coffee mug, and a single framed quote on the wall. "They tried to bury me. They didn't know I was a seed." And then, like fate has a flair for drama, guess who shows up at my door? Elliot, looking very much like a man who hasn't slept in a week. He stands outside my office like a ghost of corporate sins past. Suit rumpled, tie gone, desperation leaking from every pore. I open the door slowly. He forces a smile. "Hi, Ava." I raise an eyebrow. "You lost?" "Starbucks is downstairs." He laughs nervously. "Can we talk?" I don't answer. He swallows. "I messed up. Okay? I know that now. I was under pressure. My dad—" "Stop," I cut in. "Don't use him as a shield now." He flinches. "I was just wondering," he says, voice dropping. "If there's any way we could collaborate," I say, incredulous. "No, not collaborate. Just end this quietly." "You've already won." I stare at him. "Won?" "No, Elliot. This isn't about winning. This is about rewriting the rules. You don't get to define the terms anymore," I say. "You fired me because you were threatened. Now I'm a name you have to Google before you walk into any boardroom. He blinks. Caught. I smile. I suggest you find the door before I send your next email to the Times. He leaves, and this time, I don't feel nervous watching him go. I feel free. Because my revenge? It's not just about taking them down. It's about standing on the ashes with your head high, building something stronger, louder, unbreakable. It's funny how quickly the world flips when you stop asking for permission. One moment you're the assistant everyone ignores in the elevator. The next you're trending on business blogs with headlines like, "Former assistant exposes corporate corruption and launches her own powerhouse firm." From coffee runs to corporate runs, meet Ava Sharp. They say I'm petty, that I'm dragging out a vendetta, but I'm not dragging anything. I'm building, and the people who once whispered behind my back, they're calling my name now, loudly, with offers, contracts, and collaboration requests. Jade, my first ally in all of this, invites me to keynote her Women's Business Summit. I stand on a stage in front of 500 women in blazers and heels, all of them scribbling notes and nodding when I speak. When you stop being who they want and start being who you are, I say, they'll call it revenge. But we call it justice. The applause is thunder. Afterward, a line forms. Women, interns, middle managers, even a few quiet executives who slipped in unnoticed. I needed this, one woman says. I didn't even realize how much until you said it out loud. That's when I know. This is bigger than Elliot, bigger than Roger. It's about all of us who were underestimated. But Karma still had a few invoices left to deliver. And she's fast. A month after my testimony, Roger Langston is ousted from the board. Not by force, by fear. Investors pull out. Stock value plummets. The Langston name no longer inspires confidence. It inspires investigations. And Elliot? Last I hear, he's trying to launch a consulting firm of his own. No clients, no partners, just an echo chamber of ego. I don't reach out. I don't look back. Instead, I focus forward. Ava Sharp Strategies is gaining momentum. We're up to 6 employees now. All women, all survivors of some form of corporate abuse. We share stories at lunch, not to trauma bond, but to armor up. Every client we take on gets more than strategy. They get truth. They get empowerment. They get us. And then, out of nowhere, my old firm tries to rebrand. Langston and Rowe becomes Lamora Capital. They think a new name will wash away the headlines. Cute. I launch a Twitter thread. Langston and Rowe thinks you forgot. Here's a refresher. I post side-by-side screenshots of their old mission statement and their new one, their SEC violations, their internal memos I legally obtained. Every lie, every cover-up. In hours, the thread goes viral. Again. The comments flood in. Why do they keep underestimating her? She's unstoppable. Ava for president of Corporate Karma. And the best part? I didn't even have to do anything illegal. I just told the truth. The truth they buried under NDAs and fear. But there's one thing left. One final thread to pull. Roger's private foundation. It was supposed to be a nonprofit. Philanthropic. Clean. Noble. Except it was none of those things. Because I remembered the day he asked me to scrub the donation list for a gala. He said some names weren't public friendly. I'd flagged it in a file. Now I dig it up. Turns out, the foundation funneled money into shell companies. Some owned by friends. Others by clients. All of them conveniently hidden behind tax loopholes. I package the evidence, run it through a lawyer, and drop it to a journalist with one sentence. You might want to look at Lamora's charity wing. Start with the vendors. I don't publish it myself. I don't need to. Because at this point, the public does the rest. They're watching now. And once they start watching, it's over for people like Roger. 2 weeks later, a new expose hits the front page. Roger Langston's fate. The headline? Beneath the surface, the nonprofit network built on lies. Boom. It's not just bad PR. It's dismantling the entire illusion. People ask me if I'm done now, if the revenge is complete, and I tell them the truth. Revenge was never the goal. Clarity was. And now I'm clearer than ever, because every fire they tried to burn me with only lit my next step. And standing in the ashes is the girl they underestimated, holding a match and smiling. People always say revenge is a dish best served cold. But this is a 5-course meal with silverware engraved in my name. After the charity expose drops, the fallout is swift. Roger Langston steps down, though anyone who reads between the lines knows he was forced out. The board claims it's for health reasons, to maintain some dignity, but no one believes it. And Elliot? He disappears from social media completely. No posts, no selfies, no snide captions about grind culture or being CEO born. Not made. The silence is almost louder than the chaos. I don't celebrate. Not publicly. I'm done screaming for attention. Now I just let my work speak for me. And right now, it's speaking volumes. Ava Sharp Strategies lands its biggest client yet. A global design firm tired of being steamrolled by its all-male investors. They want to restructure, elevate women to executive leadership, and build a real legacy. I step in and build the plan they need. 1 month later, the firm goes viral. After naming its first all-women C-suite, they credit me directly. In interviews, in op-eds, suddenly, people aren't just noticing me, they're studying me. College professors reach out asking if they can include my case in business ethics seminars. I get invited to panel discussions where people used to ask if I was with the catering. But here's the real full circle moment. Langston and Rowe, or Lamora Capital now, is desperate. Their brand is trashed. Clients are leaving in droves. Internally there's panic, layoffs, resignations, lawsuits. And in a moment so ironic, it feels scripted, their interim board reaches out to my firm. They don't know it's me, at first. They just know they need crisis management, rebranding, strategy. They've heard my agency delivers results. Jade. Now my COO walks into my office holding the RFP request for proposal. Her eyebrows are already raised. "You're not going to believe this," she says. I take one look at the logo on the cover and laugh. The kind of laugh that tastes like closure. We schedule a meeting, not to work with them, to look them in the eye. I show up in a slate gray suit, hair slicked into a clean low bun, heels that click like thunder on their polished floors. Jade walks beside me, calm and collected. Their temporary director, an older man named Gregory, meets us in the conference room. He extends his hand. "Miss Sharp, thank you for coming." I shake it. "Of course." He starts talking about their situation, about how they're in flux, about how a young, fresh firm like mine might be the key to rebuilding trust. I say nothing, not until the end, when he asks, "Do you think you'd be open to submitting a proposal?" And I smile, slow, sharp, and completely unbothered. "I'm going to pass," I say, "but thank you for the opportunity." He blinks. "May I ask why?" I meet his gaze, steady as steel. "Because I don't fix what I didn't break," and with that, I walk out. But revenge? It's not done with them yet, because 2 weeks later, I close on a small but prime downtown building. 3 floors, lots of natural light. It used to belong to a Langston and Rowe partner. They sold it at a loss to cover their legal fees. And now, it's the new headquarters of Ava Sharp Strategy. Every time someone walks into our lobby, they walk across marble floors that once hosted men in suits who laughed behind closed doors at me, at women like me. But now, those floors echo with new voices, our voices. And we're not asking for a seat anymore. We own the table. One morning, I get an anonymous email. No subject line. Just a forwarded message from an internal Langston email thread. Elliot's name is on it. In it, he blames me. He calls me conniving, says I weaponized vulnerability. I read it 3 times, then I smile. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. They don't hate that you failed. They hate that you survived, that you came back stronger, that you're thriving without them, that you turned their rejection into your resurrection. And when they realize they never broke you, they unravel. So let them talk. Let them whisper. Let them label me dramatic, emotional, petty, too much. They gave me every reason to quit, and I gave them every reason to regret it. They thought they silenced me when they kicked me out. When Elliot smirked across the conference table as security stood behind me, when my nameplate was tossed in a box like I hadn't poured years into that office, when I walked down that hallway, hearing the whispers and fake sympathy, but they didn't silence me. They built the amplifier I now use to speak. And I'm using it louder than ever. It starts with one invitation, a Women in Tech Summit in San Diego. They want me to speak on resilience in male-dominated spaces. I pause when I read the email, because I remember a time when I would have hesitated, when I was taught to shrink, to nod, to smile and be agreeable, even when I was furious. But now, I just say yes. The stage is huge. The room holds almost 800 people. The lighting is warm. My palms are cold. But when I step on stage and see all those young women in the crowd, wide-eyed, hungry to be seen, something unlocks. I take a deep breath and begin. I was told I was replaceable, that I was just a girl in a borrowed seat. I was let go without warning by a man who had power he didn't earn, just because he didn't like hearing no. There's a silence in the room so still. It hums. I continue. And I thought that would be the end of my career, but it wasn't. It was the beginning of something bigger. I talk about starting my own agency, about betrayal, about rebuilding, about the difference between being invited in and building something that no one can take from you. When I finish, there's a pause, a second of suspended breath, and then an eruption. The standing ovation lasts nearly 2 full minutes, and something shifts. After that, my inbox floods. Podcasts, panels, book agents, and former coworkers, the quiet ones who watched what happened to me and said nothing, start sending messages like, "I'm sorry. You were right. I wish I'd spoken up." And I don't respond to them with anger. I respond with silence. Because silence now is a choice, a power. I speak only where it matters. I launch a series of mentorship workshops for women in corporate roles who've experienced bullying, gaslighting, sabotage. We call it the Reclaim Project. We don't just talk about how to survive. We teach how to own your voice, your path, your name. One night, after a speaking event in New York, a young woman stops me on the way out. She's probably 20, nervous, holding a worn notebook. "I don't want to be a boss," she said, "but I want to be respected." I look her in the eye. "Those two things aren't mutually exclusive," I tell her. "Being soft doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Don't let them harden you just to make them comfortable." She nods slowly. I know she'll remember that, because I did once, when I was the quiet one, the overlooked one, the one trying to prove herself in rooms that didn't even want her there. But now, I'm not proving anything. I'm building everything. Jade and I expand the agency to 3 cities, New York, Chicago, and Austin. We turn down more clients than we take on, because we work on our terms now. And then, I get an anonymous LinkedIn message from an account with no photo, just the words, "Elliot's applying for consulting jobs. No one's hiring him. He's blaming you." I stare at the screen for a moment, and instead of feeling triumph, I feel nothing. Not because I'm numb, but because I'm done. That man was a chapter in my story, but I am the author. And he doesn't even get a footnote in this new volume. 1 month later, I get invited to be the keynote speaker at a tech leadership gala in DC. The theme? Rewriting the rules of power. I stand before a sea of the very people who once laughed at women like me, and now they lean forward, taking notes. I smile, calm and steady, as I say, "You can fire someone, you can sabotage them, you can even erase their name from the door, but you can't erase their story. And tonight, I own mine." Funny how revenge loses its flavor once you've outgrown the hunger for it. People ask me now, "Would you go back to that job, that company, that title?" I always give the same answer. No, I don't want my old job back. I want the building, and not to work in it, to own it. And now, I do. Let me explain. It's been 18 months since Elliot had me fired, 18 months since he smirked as I packed my things, thinking he'd won. Since then, my agency has grown past anything I imagined when I was clenching my jaw in that conference room, holding back tears. We're not just surviving, we're thriving. 6 clients turned to 22. We now represent campaigns in wellness, media, fashion, and tech. We have our own digital platform, an office with our name on the glass, and then one of our junior analysts forwards me a listing. You'll never guess what's up for sale. It's the building. Their building. The one where I used to work. Where Elliot strutted down the hall like a prince in a paper crown. Where they called me sweetheart behind my back and asked me to take notes in meetings I should have been leading. It's up for sale. I reread the listing 3 times. Then I pick up the phone. Because I'm not buying this for nostalgia. I'm buying it for power. And within 2 weeks I do. Turns out, the company went under 6 months after I left. Elliot tried to pivot into crypto branding, lost 2 major clients, and got sued for breach of contract. He now does consulting work out of a co-working space. Meanwhile, I have the deed and the keys. On the first day I walk through the lobby, something catches in my throat. The building still smells the same, faint pine cleaner and old printer paper. But it feels different. Because this time, I don't walk through the front doors with fear in my chest. I walk in with my head high and my heels clicking like a war drum. The office suite that used to be theirs? We turn it into a creative co-op space. Free for young women, launching startups. I rename the main conference room the silenced room. Every founder we support gets to leave a note on the wall, a quote they were once told to discourage them. They're all framed now. Things like, "That's a man's job. You're too emotional for leadership. You don't have what it takes." And right under each, a photo of the woman who proved them wrong. One afternoon, I'm in the lobby signing papers with our property manager, and I hear a voice behind me. I know it before I turn around. Elliot. He's thinner, pale, looks tired in the way people do when they've been trying too hard to appear unbothered. His eyes flick to the building directory, then back to me. "You bought it," he says flatly. I smile, not smug, just calm. "I did. You planning on reopening the firm?" I let the silence hang before I say, "No. We're doing better things here now." He shifts his weight, clears his throat. "You know, I never wanted things to get that ugly. It was just pressure, expectations." I nod slowly. "We all had pressure. You chose how to deal with yours." He opens his mouth, closes it. "Then, I was young." I meet his eyes. "So was I." Then I turn back to the paperwork and finish signing the expansion lease. I don't need a dramatic exit or a mic drop. I don't need him to grovel or admit I was right. Because I know I was right. I knew it the day he fired me. And I know it now as I lead a team of 30 across 3 cities, mentor 200 women, and wake up each morning to a life I built. That's the sweetest part of all this. Not the revenge, the freedom. I don't think about Elliot when I fall asleep at night. I think about the next woman we're hiring, the next story we're telling, the next girl who thinks she's too much, and what it'll mean when she realizes she's exactly enough. So if you're watching this, and you've ever been told you're replaceable, that you need him, that you'll never make it on your own, let me tell you something. You don't just survive without them, you shine. And if you do it right, you'll be too bright for them to look at without blinking.